Hey, I'm Matt Waldman with the Rookie Scouting Portfolio, and this is a preview of the 2022 RSP Pre-Draft Guide. And it is a comprehensive look at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. It's fantasy. It has a fantasy appeal for sure, but it's also something that a lot of football media reads and scouts. Alex Brown, who's the director of recruiting for SMU and has been in 3 other stops, meeting with scouts pretty much on a weekly basis as part of his job, is letting me know that this is one of the 2 most purchased independent draft guides that you're going to see available. And so, let's take a look, give you a chance to see what it is that you would get for $21.95. This plus a post-draft, which I'll give a preview to when that one's ready. But this is going to be available April 1st. First of all, everything's bookmarked available for you. So while it's 1,014 pages, seems kind of like a ton for 150 to 160 prospects, you'll understand that it's pretty easy to navigate because you click on that little arrow here, and that's going to show you the bookmark. Click on the bookmark, and then you see everything here that's available. And say you want to look at running backs, you can click that arrow, and everything's bookmarked throughout the chapter. If I want to take a look at the overview and fantasy impact, or dynasty and redraft advice, or I want to give you some history about running backs and where they're drafted and which rounds, or give you skill breakdowns and take you through my process and show you, say you want to look at ball handling and average fumble rates, you can look at that. Or say you want to look at where I've ranked them at speed. I define what I think speed is and how I grade it, and then I show you what tiers these players fall in, give you maybe an overview of who the best were, who should be monitored, who were the worst, and I give you also, again, how many points they got on the 100-point scale for these scores. So you have that all right here. It takes you through all the different criteria that I use for the running back position. Again, defining it, giving you a score of where the players fall into those tiers. And this is just for depth of talent. I also look at breadth of talent. Depth of talent to me is how well they do it. Breadth of talent is whether they can do certain skills. So it's kind of like resume bullet points versus how good they really are. So I take you also through players that I think have, that I just have kind of some overview thoughts about, as well as who I think is overrated or underrated, who's a project, who's good at maybe third down or short areas, special teams, things like that. And then I give you some ideas of players who I think are good with certain types of scheme based in terms of special passing down specialists, or whether they're more with gap heavy or zone heavy in terms of where they would match up in terms of run blocking. I give you some analytics on after contact. So if you want to see, for instance, how players scored when I tracked them versus different position types on the types of tackles that they encountered. Wraps, reaches, hits. Who handled those well? What percentage of the plays that I watched them run where they encountered a wrap by a defensive lineman? What percentage of those did they break? Some of the values are low here, but again, I track everything that I do. And this is something that, I want to give you some mix of analytics and film with it. I show you my talent grading scale that I use for depth of talent, how that's defined. There's an entire glossary that you can look at that will define everything that I do in detail. But then I give you profiles in terms of the players that I study. So, Breece Hall, I give you an idea of the games that I tracked with him, give you an idea of what the elevator pitch is in terms of what I think of him, and then go through each of the areas of what I saw on tape and why I scored him the way I did. And if you want to see his checklist, well, I have a checklist as well. So you can go to Breece Hall, you can magnify this out here, and it's in alphabetical order, this one, the other one's in ranking, but it shows you the games I watched for the player, how I charted, tackle attempts, what they eluded, and then also, all the things that I looked at. And then you'll find in the glossary how I define a lot of these things. So that's the rookie scouting portfolio. In addition to that, you get tables. So if you want just a quick cheat sheet, say you're in a fantasy league and you just want to see some of their combine information, you want to see how I rank them by a score, you can see my rankings for those players. You can also scroll down and you'll see that I rank them in different ways. So if you want to see their breadth of talent ranked, you can do that. If you want to see, for instance, who I compared them to, you can see that. I even have a 3-year worth of rankings where I have players here, and you can see where I've ranked them, at least at the point where they were rookies. So this is all available for $21.95. A percentage of this, up to $5,000 every year, is donated to Darkness to Light. And April is Sexual Abuse Prevention Month, or Children's Sexual Abuse Prevention Month. And the RSP has donated over $50,000 in the past 10 years to Darkness to Light. And they're a great organization designed to train people on how to, prevent this from happening to children, as well as how to address it when it unfortunately does happen, so that they don't compound the potential trauma that a child can have from the event, because we've seen how people and organizations have failed in that regard. And Darkness to Light is a leading charity and advocacy group, an educational group to help people with that. So again, buying a draft guide, having fun for your fantasy league, getting to get prepped for your draft, or being a draftnik for your team, want to learn more about these players, you can go to the RSP and get that. And also know that you're donating, or at least through me, I'm donating some of the proceeds of the sales to a great cause. Again, mattwaldman.com. Been doing this since 2006. I think you'll like it. Thanks again.